Hello and welcome to Vox Markets. I'm John Human, and today I'm joined by John Wood, Chief Executive of Harland Wolff, to look back over what has been a transformational year for the infrastructure specialist. Welcome, John. Good to talk to you again.
No, good to be here and good to catch up.
Absolutely. So when I say transformational, that's possibly an understatement. I mean, it's been an incredible year, and you've achieved an incredible amount since you acquired the Belfast facility. What was that, 3 years ago?
Just under 3 years ago, 5th of December 2019, we got the keys and had no work in the yard and a shipyard that was in a million pieces, really.
Well, you put it back together, and there's a lot of work going through it now, including one of the most significant naval shipbuilding contracts the UK's seen in many, many years. So let's start with that contract, which you're part of a consortium, Team Resolute, which has been awarded a 1.6 billion before inflation MOD contract to build 3 fleet support vessels for the Royal Navy. Talk us through the details and the contract itself, which seems like a real vindication of the strategy we spoke about last time we met. And it feels like everything's really been building up to this moment.
Absolutely, and look, I'm quite pleased for the team. I think the team have worked bloody hard over the last 3 years to get here, and I think it's been a journey that we've been on from acquiring Belfast to acquiring Appledore in the summer of 21, then gone on to acquire the Methil and Appledore sites at the back end of that year and into the following year. So look, I think it's accumulated in the Fleet Solid Support contract. Obviously, earlier on in the year, we had the M55 contract for the Lithuanian Navy, which again in itself was a standalone contract, is a fantastic contract that's going exceptionally well. And we had the Corrie barges going in. So we've had a slow trickle of building up the contracts. But look, the FSS contract, that's, as you mentioned, 1.6 billion contract in a joint venture arrangement with our partners. Navantia, which is the Spanish leading shipbuilder that's delivered all the ships on time and on budget, and BMT, the UK's leading design company. So look, I think the reason we selected that consortium was really we wanted to bring something different to the market, so that we can deliver ships on time, on budget, and so that we can become that, as a Secretary of State for Defence said the other day when he was in Appledore announcing the contract, it's the third stream of shipbuilding in the UK. Long have I wished to hear those words when it's only been 2 streams and really hard to penetrate. But now we've managed to penetrate that. Look, it's all about moving on, really getting this contract under our belt, and then focusing on that market, the export market, that again will be on top of everything else we're doing. A market worth 500 million per annum that we can then target as well. And I think the catalyst for that is the investment into the facilities. The investment's key to being the most state-of-the-art shipyard in the UK, really reducing the number of physical labour hours in it and increasing the automation and robotics. So look, it's a great place to be, and it sets us up well for the future,
Absolutely. I mean, as part of the consortium, you're getting a very large injection of capital. I think it was 77 million. Can you talk about how you're going to be investing that?
Look, I think the 77 million split between Appledore and Appledore and Belfast. And I think when you look at what we've done in all the yards, is we've not skimped away from spending money where we've needed to spend money. I think it's all about having the assets in the right condition that you need to. So I think Belfast will see an extension to the fabrication halls to get the right material flow, material movement through. And really that's all about the production efficiency. And you'll see a new blast and paint hall going in that can really take in the full-size blocks. The bow section will be built down in Appledore from the keel up to the top rail and brought up. There'll be some sections built in Spain, and the majority of the fabrication will be done in Belfast. All the blocks will be constructed on the hard above the head of the building dock. Then they'll be dropped into the bottom of the dock and joined together and consolidated. So look, the investment is really to get to that next level of robotics, automation, digital, twin ship, shipyard 4.0 is really to push on And I guess that's what sets us apart from the rest of the competition. And I think once you get away from relying on the labour rate between ourselves and Turkey and places like that, and it is all down to automation, it opens up a whole load of contracts in the future that perhaps we wouldn't have been cost competitive for. So it's not just about the FSS contract, it's about what we do after that FSS contract to really position ourselves, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really does sound like you make an investment in truly state-of-the-art facilities here, which positions you very well for the future. I mean, defence, was the last market you went into, and now is, I would assume, your biggest potentially as a result of this contract. Where do you go from here in defence? I mean, we're in a strange situation geopolitically. I think something that really struck me about the award was the idea that the need for levelling up and how this actually creates sort of jobs throughout the country. So it sounds like there's a lot of tailwinds that are there for you at the moment in this particular market.
Well, I think you say defence was the last market we went into. It was actually the first one we tried to get into, but it just took us the longest to get there. And look, I think it's a well-known fact that contracting with defence is not for the faint-hearted. It's a long, drawn-out process. And I think we've stuck with it over that 3-year period. And I think it was one of the first things we went after. So look, I think, yes, we've now got more traction in defence for the time being than other markets. I see renewables not being far behind it, to be fair. The number of renewable projects that are out there, I think by the time you get into next year, you'll start seeing renewable developers sort of coming up on that. And then I think behind that, probably cruise and ferry, with the changes that have taken place in that market, I think it'll be, again, fast on the heels of that. But you look at the strategy, really, and you talk about vindication of the strategy. The strategy was always key to having 5 markets so that we had 2 markets buoyant. And why that was so important, and what it still is so that you don't end up having a whole load of work, then no work, then work. And so you're laying off the workforce, re-employing the workforce. Every time you do that, it's a 10 to 20 million, 25 million exercise. And then the skills and the productivity and everything falls away. So it's really about keeping that core nucleus of people and then supplementing it with additional people as and when, and really keeping that know-how and how to use the machinery, how to operate the machinery, and really keeping that production rate going. So I think you look at the defence market, well, I mean, none of us want to see the war in Ukraine. It's not a great thing for any of us, but I certainly think it's focused navies globally. And I think, we're even seeing other navies who traditionally wouldn't do repairs and refits and major conversions, for example, in the UK, now starting to talk to us. So we've got quite a bit of interest from outside the UK for near-term work, which is really, I think, is a direct result of fleets operating in that North Atlantic area where perhaps they haven't done in the past. So I think, look, that's only going to continue to move in that direction. I think given what's happened, I think we'll see a heightened level of defence and security for the next few decades, which bodes well for us,
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned energy and renewables as another big market, and also, they too are now an issue of national security. Can you talk us through, what you're doing in the energy and renewables market? I was particularly interested as well in the gas storage project. It's it's top of mind given the energy crisis we're sort of living through at the moment.
Well, let's start with the gas storage project in Islandmagee. It was up for the judicial review, where the protesters complained that you can't put salt in seawater. Get that logic if you can. We've had numerous scientists, independent scientists, confirm that there's no issue. The legal reviews that we've had have not highlighted anything that should make the judicial review stand up. So we expect when that's heard next year that will fall away, which will then allow us to get the project built and keep lights on in people's homes and keep them heated. I think, look on the island, I think there's a real possibility of the lights going out this winter, given the shortage in supply. And I think we're seeing the daily energy warnings and the weekly energy warnings from the national grid becoming more prevalent week on week. We're starting to see them pop up. So I think, look, the beauty about the Islandmagee gas storage project is the short-term nature of it. You can switch from injecting gas into the caverns to withdrawing gas out the caverns within 60 minutes. Whereas some of the bigger programs like ROUGH, it takes 3 or 4 months to get the gas in and 3 or 4 months to get the gas out. And when you have these cold snaps, it's really just not possible to do anything with it. So look, I think that project will come along. We've had quite a bit of interest from some of the majors, to operate, maybe some views of ownership, joint ownership, farm down arrangement. So look, I think people are keeping their powder dry until they see where the judicial review goes. And look, for us, we've really not got a lot of interest in a sale until that judicial review's over, because we want to, anything we do, whether it's a farm down, whether it's a sale, whether it's we develop it ourselves through some government funding, we just want to be on a clear playing field when we do that. When you look at the other yards, I mean, floating wind, I think we'll see really coming to the fore by the end of 23 into 24. And what better place to build floating wind projects than shipyards that use all the same construction technology and methodology. We've got a jacket project going through metal at the moment, but look, we see jackets as something that's now on its way out, and we see floating wind, which is more akin to the shipbuilding side, being a lot bigger as we move forward. And I think, there's billions and billions of pounds worth of projects in that space. And I think the beauty of the collaboration we've got with Navantia, we're actually looking at projects for overseas for Navantia. So it may be we export renewable projects as well, and it may be to deal with some of the larger projects in the UK. We need Navantia's capacity as well. So I think it's keeping those international collaborations open, really to do a good job to deliver what the clients want when they want it. But I think we're having metal and harnish. Even for FSS, there'll be components getting manufactured in metal and in harnish for those programs. And I think when you look at harnish, I mean, it's really formed a niche for itself in delivering programs. I mean, the Greenland project that you mentioned earlier, it's delivered projects into the Gulf, it's delivered projects into the nuclear plant. So look, I think it's a great site, great workforce. And I think they've also getting inundated with inquiries for renewables. So I think one of the beauties of the 4 sites that we chose was to have them spread out around the UK, so we could capitalise on that being local to the projects.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned nuclear. I mean, that's there's a new commitment to kind of rebuilding the UK's nuclear generating base, and you're involved in that already. Did you see quite significant prospects there?
We do, and look, the way we've chosen to engage in that is not directly. We are going in through a subcontractor, so we can let somebody else deal with the voluminous paperwork that's involved in that, and we'll go in through a subcontractor. But I think, look, let us cut our teeth on it, deliver a few projects in on it, then we may look at doing something a bit more substantial. But look, I think when you look at the core markets that we've got that are really, really busy, we're not looking to stray too far away from that. You can spread yourself too thin. And I think, you look at the cruise market, for example, no new cruise ships are really going to get built for the next decade or so. So that whole revitalization and upgrade piece is going to be really busy over the coming months and years. So I think we see that as another area that, there's growth on our doorstep that we're fairly confident in doing,
Yeah, I think you mentioned at the time of your interims that you're getting quite a few inquiries for docking of cruise ships. Is that something that you expect to see coming through quite soon?
Absolutely. No, I think cruise ships is something that for next year, I think you're going to see a substantial up ramp. I think the cruise ships have now been back running for a portion of time. They're all beginning to start making money again. And they didn't get a lot of money spent on them when they were laid up. And passengers always want to see something new and interesting and upgraded. And I think the environmental implications for the cruise ships, again, is something else that I see taking hold. And I think as we strive for net zero, you'll see cruise ships really pushing to do their bit for net zero as well,
I mean, this sounds like you're incredibly busy and getting busier. Where does this leave the forecast. I think last time we spoke, you were on track to deliver sort of 100, 150 million of revenues by 2023, 200 odd the year after, and starting to think about returns to shareholders. Are we still on that trajectory, or has this changed? Has certainly the latest contract changed things?
Look, I think we're holding the same guidance as we've got at the moment. I think we're preferred bidder once we get FSS signed and sealed. Q1 next year is the advertised timescale for that. Let's see where we are. But I think we also said we're looking, 500 million is the magic number that I've got in my mind of where I think we can get to in the turnover. So look, that's still the overall target. And I think, look, returning funds to shareholders is something that we're keen to get to. And I think that 2-year window is still something that's alive and well, and something we're looking to do. And I think it will be a great position to be in when we start doing that,
So in terms of capacity, where are we with capacity? 500 million sounds a long way from where we are today. Was that within the capacity you have and the financing you have, or are there further investments in capacity that need to happen?
Well, if you look at the capacity we've got between the 4 yards, we've got around 52% in marine fabrication capacity in the UK. And you look at the other yards that are there, pretty much everybody's full. You look at the Spanish yards, they're pretty much full. You look at the French yards, they're pretty much full. So look, I think there's a lot of stuff that can come to us in the short and medium term. Look, I think we look around, we see what's available. But I think, making sure all the yards we have are full and have a substantial pipeline is the key to where we want to be before we look at anything else. Look, I think if there's strategic vertical integration pieces that we can build into this along the way, then hey, let's look at it. And I think certainly the Fleet Solid Support contract gives us that ability to look at where we can do vertical integration,
And obviously to deliver all this, you've got to have the right team behind you. You've made some changes in the ballroom this year, or some additions to the ballroom this year, and obviously you've got to build the workforce in the yards to operate them. Can you talk through to the progress you've made there, and where that leaves you in terms of having the expertise to deliver on the strategy?
Well, look, I think the chairman's done a great job, Malcolm Grow. He's really strengthened the board. We've got 2 NEDs in addition to himself, and I think we'll probably look to add a third one there by the end of next year. That's the plan. From an executive side, we've really spent a bit of time upgrading that team. We've got a new group head of HR in, really looking, and that's really to look at the upscale from where we were. Andrew was at Alstom before, so he's got a big experience of upgrading and upscaling workforces and really creating an environment and a culture where people want to work here, so that we can retain staff, not just as well as employ them. I think that's really important from where we are. We've also got Ian, our head of change, strategy and change, come in. So I think we're adding people all the time. And I think, as we continue to get bigger and bigger, in wider, in more complex projects, it's all about bringing the right level of people into the business. And I think, I always try and surround myself by people that are better than me. It tends to make my life a bit easier,
Absolutely. No, it really has been a year of tremendous progress, and so but to say it's been transformational is indeed an understatement. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. Thank you very much, John.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good to be here, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.